My name is Addie. We're in Auburn, Alabama. It's mid-September, and today I'll be demonstrating how to do late summer grafts of Japanese maples. Specifically, we'll be working with the genus Acer and the species Palmatum. Now, grafting Japanese maples, while not particularly hard, does require some very specific tools. And I put them into three categories: your cutting tools, your binding and labeling tools, and your disinfecting and cleaning tools. These are my bypass pruners. I use these to collect Scion. Today we're going to be grafting from a Sakizuka. And if I want to get a piece of Scion, this is my go-to piece. You'll also find that you'll use this tool for most of your pruning, and you'll use it a lot when working with Japanese maples. It's a bypass pruner as opposed to an anvil pruner, and I get that because it makes a cleaner cut and doesn't tend to crush the what you're cutting. This is a Tina grafting knife. It's kind of the go-to knife for grafting Japanese maples. It's what I use almost exclusively. They're pretty expensive. If you're starting out, you can start with just a box cutter, and I use these a lot myself, especially for really fine grafts. These are labels, and every time you take grafts with Japanese maples, make sure that you label and keep up with exactly what you're grafting. There are several thousand cultivars of Japanese maples. If you forget to label one or mislabel one, it's almost impossible to go back and find out exactly what it is because so many look similar. This is buddy tape. This is the product I'll be using today for my grafting. It's perforated and it stretches. And when you stretch it, it becomes self-adhesive. It's a very, very good grafting tape. And finally, my disinfectants. I use rubbing alcohol as strong as I can get. This is 91%. And I use an all-purpose fungicide. This is Daconel. You can use any though. And that is very important. Two reasons the Japanese maple will not take is because of pathogens that get in the union, the graft union, or you don't correctly line up the cambium. And with that, let's look at the rootstock we'll be using today, or the bottom end of the plant, or I like to call the working end of the plant. This is a 2-year-old green Japanese maple seedling. I grow these from seeds I collect every fall. And this is what we're going to be grafting into. And the reason we do this is because the green seedlings have a much better root system than many of the selected cultivars do. And they tend not to be able to grow on their own rootstock. So we have to graft them onto something with a very vigorous rootstock. And that's why we do that. Next, the Scion. And today, like I said, I've already cut these. We're going to graft a Sakizuki. And all I've done was taken 5 end pieces of new growth that has hardened off. And you can start late summer grafts in around August 1st, as soon as the wood starts to harden off of your new growth. I like to get 3 to 5 inches, a piece 3 to 5 inches long, and then I'm going to come back and make my final cuts of where I want to graft this one from. And then finally, before we start grafting, we need to clean everything. And this is, first I use my rubbing alcohol. And I'm just going to take the Scions each and just give them a gentle rub in the alcohol. Just to get those surface pathogens off there. Give me a nice clean Scion. It's really going to help my chances that these take if they're clean and sterilized. Okay, and then finally I'm going to take the Daconel, the all-purpose fungicide, and I'm going to spray the scions with that. And those are basically ready now to be grafted. And with graft, what we're going to do, and before I start grafting, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my tools. If I have to make another cut in there, I don't want to introduce a pathogen on my tools. And you need to clean after, really after every graft or every cut you make, you need to clean up whatever tool you're using. Now, I'm not going to graft yet, but what we would do is on the seed stock, just come in and clean it too with some alcohol first and then a little Daconel. After we've cleaned our knife, we can come in here and we're just going to make a pocket cut. You don't want to go more than 20% of depth into the plant or you'll kill it. So this is just a pocket cut, and then the Scion, we're going to make a chisel cut, just 2 cuts straight down, coming to a nice point, gives us a nice V profile. Now, when we have our cuts made and the Scion's ready to graft, we place it in the pouch. And what we want to do here is we've got to line up the cambium. The cambium is a layer of vascular cells of phloem and xylem which carry the water and food throughout the plant. And they occur immediately under the bark and before the wood. It's a very thin layer, maybe only 6 or 7 cells wide, and it's very difficult to see. But we have to have some cambium contact, at least on one side. We're going to try to get it on one side in the top with the graft tape. It's very important, your alignment. So let's go up here and do some grafts. I've got these sterilized. I'm going to need my grafting knife. I've got a little tape up here. Now I'm going to go ahead and prepare the seedlings. These are just 2-year-old green Japanese maple seedlings that I collect. I collect the seeds every fall, throw them out for a couple years, and they're ready to graft. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do, of course I need to also spray these with Daconel. And this will kill any of the funguses, and that's usually what will get you on your grass. Is a fungus pathogen will get in there in your union, and it will kill the graft every time. Okay, we have our scions ready now. Our seedlings are ready now. We can start grafting. I've got this piece of paper towel right here with the alcohol on it. I'm going to clean my knife before each graft. Put on some eyes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little back pressure on the tree right here, come up above the node. I'm just going to try to make a little pouch. It's good, and then I'm going to make a top cut right here. Now I make that top cut, that gives me another layer where I can match the cambium layer up with my Scion. Now I'm going to do my chisel cut. I'm just going to come right here. Come straight down. We'll go on the other side. Straight down. And you can see the profile right there. I have a really nice V. It's straight. And it's ready to go in there. I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to go into my flap. I'm actually going to do this one on the other side. Come into my flap here. I'm just going to get it in there for right now. I'm going to get all my cambium layers lined up. And I'm just trying to line up on this flap back here, and this top flap. There's no way I'm going to be able to get all the different sides. But I can, if I get one good one, that'll be enough for my graft to take. And that looks good, so I'm just going to get a piece of the buddy tape. And I take one of the perforated pieces and I cut it in half lengthwise, and that's plenty. I come down below the node, I stretch it out a little piece, and now I'm just going to walk it up, and I'm going to cover about half the tape underneath it, each wrap. I don't want to overwrap this. If you overwrap it, then it won't exhaust the gases through the perforations. That one broke. I'm just going to walk this up right up the graft, and as I get along the graft, I'm going to kind of watch and make sure that I don't knock the graft out of alignment. And as soon as I get above the graft mark, I'm just going to put a little back pressure back here on this tree and pull that off, and that one is grafted. Let's take another one. We're going to come in above a node. I like to go about 12 or 18 inches up, a nice straight trunk on my seedling. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to make my flap cut, top it off a little bit. I'm going to grab a piece of Scion, 2 cuts, straight down, flip it over, and straight down. I'm going to look at my profiles and they look good. They're nice and straight. I have a nice V chisel cut. I'm going to put it into my flat cut. I'm going to line the cambium up along with this flap and try to line it up with the back as best I can, and along this top. I've got nice alignment there. Take my piece of grafting tape. I'm going to start about one node under the graft. Wrap it half the length, the width of the tape on each wrap, and just gently walk that up, making sure that I'm staying in alignment. And then when I get above that graft, I'll just pull it off, and that one is good. Now another reason I like to keep a light wrap on the graft is I can see through it. And as long as I can see through it, if something does go wrong, I will know what it was, whether it's a pathogen or if I just didn't line up the cambium layers correctly. If you just have a little bit of wrap along your grafting area, you can go back and see that. And then you can learn from your mistakes. Was it an alignment problem or was it a pathogen? As soon as you see black in there, you know that the graft is not going to take. It's a pathogen. But if it does take, and you can look through there and see the plant actually starts to heal itself. It's a wounding process, and you can see the callus material forming along the cuts, and you know then that you're good and that your alignment was correct. Okay, I've got that nice and lined up, cambium to cambium, nice tight graft. Got two good surfaces of that cut matching cambium layers, and that'll give me a very, very good chance of getting this graft. I'm going to start a node below, cover half of the tape each wrap, walk it up. I'll watch as I go across the graft that I don't knock it out of alignment, and as soon as I get above it, I'll come down, put a little back pressure on the tree, and just top that off. And that one's done. Same thing. Find where I want to put this one. Come in a flat cut above the node. Do a A notch cut there. This notch cut also gives you a little more room in case the graft tries to butt into the actual tree. This little cut will also give you a little more room there too. Now I'm going to do my chisel cut, come down, flip her over and do it on the other side. And that one just didn't work well, so what I do is come on in and take that whole thing off instead of keep trying to work on it, and just redo it. See if I can. This one's a little small. Okay, I got a nice cut, nice profile there. Get that perfect triangle, you know you had a good chisel cut, and you can get some really nice alignment in your flap cut. A little pressure on that one to get that to pull in. I've got really nice alignment along this flap and along the top. That one's got a good shot of taking. I'm going to start my wrap below the node. Just going to get it on there, walk it up with 1/2 wrap around the tape each time. Going across the graft, I'm going to very carefully look that I'm not knocking it out of alignment. Get above it, a little back pressure here, and just pull that off, and I can see right through the tape that my alignment is good. That looks great. For the last one, I'll try to get this one up a little higher. We're going to go right here. Do my flap cut, back do my notch cut, my piece of Scion, 2 cuts, one there, flip it around, one there. We got a nice profile right here, beautiful V chisel cut. And alignment looks great. I got nice cambium contact on both sides of the flap and across the top. So let's secure him. We'll go below the node, walk the tape up 1/2 wrap each time around. Watch the graft as you're going across the graft union so you don't knock it out of alignment. Above the graft union, put a little back pressure on this tree and just pull that off, and that graft is finished. Now just a few other things that we need to do before we want to put our grafts in a nice protected place that is not in full sun or anything like that, kind of a shady place with real high humidity. If you have a greenhouse, that's great. If you have a greenhouse, you may not even have to do this step, but if you're outside, you're going to have to do this step. This is a grafting wax. It's kind of a synthetic wax. It's water-based. But what I'm going to do is just come up to each graft right up here and put just a little dab on there. And that's going to keep a water droplet from coming in here, and will actually run down your graft union and just stay right there. It'll either drown your graft or you'll get pathogens. And this will prevent that, especially if you're outdoors. And don't want to use a whole lot of this. It is biodegradable, but if you really paint it on there, you'll have it on your tree for several years. I just like to use just a drop on each side, just to get that real vulnerable area right there, a little bit more protection from water. And you'll need to keep them protected for the first couple of weeks at least. A little wind, but I think we can finish. Come in here and Get this one. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting these in the tray so they won't blow over on me. And it looks like our fifth one has magically appeared. And I need to put a little grafting wax on it. Now, like I said earlier about labeling, it's very critical. I use just a plastic label with a number 2 pencil for this time. And if the graft takes and I move it up, I'll put a scratch tag on it, which will last forever. But this will last for several years. And the one we grafted today is called a Sakizuki. It's a palmatum type, but you can also graft the dissectums. As long as you stay in the genus Acer and the species palmatum. And I think I'm missing one, but that's alright. And one last thing I wanted to show you, if I have it, and I may not, was especially if you're outside, you'll want to put a little tent over this, and my tents have blown away, but it's just a piece of plastic greenhouse. I'll demonstrate using a plastic bag. What you would use is a bag like this, except it'd only be about 2 inches wide. Come in over the graft and bag it. And then you can take a twist tie, which here we got one here, and you would just come in and tie this off with a twist. Now you wouldn't use a full-size bag like this, it's a smaller bag. And that will keep, especially if you're doing it outside, put it in a protected area, put a little plastic bag over it, tie it off, and then leave that bag on there. It'll raise the humidity, keep your graft moist, and keep it from drying out. We're always in a race between the graft drying out or desiccating and it taking. This will buy you a few more days, especially if you're outdoors. If you're in a greenhouse, you can skip this step. Just make sure that your humidity stays over 100%. And that is the grafting of Japanese maples. I hope you found this demonstration to be informative. If you're ever in the area or you have additional questions, please feel free to contact me. Happy gardening.